1422.
We're your big friend, 570 WNAX.
And a good afternoon. Welcome back to your Afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Danielle Drotzman, your host here for 570 WNAX. Well, kicking off your program here today with a special guest we're excited to have on. We have Laura Edwards. She is the SDSU Extension State Climatologist. So, Laura, thank you for joining us here today. How are you?
Hi, Danielle. Great to visit with you. And so far, so good on this hot and toasty Monday.
Absolutely. Well, how was your 4th of July? You know, we had some pretty ideal weather for some outdoor summer activities. So have a good weekend.
Yeah, we had a great weekend up in Brown County in the Aberdeen area, and perfect weather for fireworks, not a lot of wind, and, got cool enough at night so we could enjoy the fireworks. And, yeah, the mosquitoes fortunately weren't too bad where we were, but I know some places really have struggled with some of the mosquitoes overnight. But we had a great weekend, and I think that's true for a lot of places. Following the multiple rounds of severe weather that we had, I think it was a nice reprieve for a change from the active weather pattern.
Absolutely. Well, good deal. Glad you had a great weekend. And it was warm and hot here in Yankton. But I guess with that, what you just said, the last time we talked, we were kind of hoping for some rain, and as things were very dry across the state. So, we have seen some recent showers and thunderstorms. So I guess maybe just kind of fill us in on what conditions look like at the moment, and maybe also an update on that drought monitor.
Yeah, sure. Starting with the drought monitor first, we saw some improvement last week on Thursday when that map was issued. Remember, their data just goes through Tuesday of each week, so it gives them a couple days to finalize the data and the map. But they did show some improvement, basically reflecting some of the moisture that we've seen in June, down in the south central part of the state, and from about Pierre to about Brookings or the Minnesota border along Highway 14, we've seen, 3 inches of rain or more in some of those areas. And so the drought monitor folks did show some improvement in those areas last week. Our D3 area, or the most severe that we have in South Dakota anyway, D3 is extreme drought on the drought monitor. That reduced in size from about 12% of the state to under 5% of the state, but it's still holding strong there in the southwest and the southeastern part of the state. And since the end of June, so just in this first week of July, we've seen additional rainfall, especially in the southeastern part of the state. Minnehaha County, parts of that far southeast, have seen 2.5 to about 4 inches of rain. Unfortunately, though, some of that has come with some severe weather. We've heard a lot about wind reports between Highmore and Huron last week, but also some hail damage and other local wind events that we've seen clock at, 80 plus miles an hour. So we've seen some rain, but I think also we've seen some areas of storm damage out and around the countryside at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess with those conditions that we've been seeing from some of these storms, and just, I guess we got some rain in some parts. Some areas are still dealing with drought. So do you have kind of an update on how some of those conditions are impacting crops across the state at the moment?
Yeah, so we've seen an improvement down in the southeast. Visiting with some of my colleagues this morning, even just getting 1.5 to 2 inches of rain, they've seen the corn respond very quickly, and just really perk up for the 4th of July, So we've seen some improvement there in corn and soybeans in the southeast. Up in the northeast, north central, we've kind of seen things dry down. In fact, it was a very dry week last week. So things are looking okay at the moment, from my estimation. But again, I think as we get closer to the second week in July, that's when we get to corn tasseling, which is a more water-intensive time, and more susceptible to heat stress as well. So I think I'm a little concerned going forward. Seeing where the crop condition is now, we could be at a tipping point in some of those areas where they could get either some heat or drought stress here in the next couple of weeks. I know out west in western South Dakota, they're getting our extension offices are seeing a lot of forage samples come in for testing for nitrates, trying to feed what they can of their drought stress forages to livestock and so on. So that's still quite a severe concern out in the western side of the state, and water quality as well for livestock.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely something we'll have to keep on our radar here as we continue throughout this critical time in the growing season. But, kind of backing up here just a little bit, we've kind of had some, I guess throughout June, we kind of had some up and down temps there. We had like a week there where it was like in the 70s and now back to like 90, 100 degrees, so it was kind of cooled off there. But I guess as we kind of move throughout the rest of the summer, I guess what are temperatures kind of projected to do?
Yeah, certainly June was all over the board, and I was looking at the map of average temperature for June compared to normal, and it's all over the board. Very local areas are cooler or warmer, not really consistent in one region or the next. So I think temperature was very local in June. As we go forward, I would say the next 2 weeks are, I think, really important. We're seeing some really high heat times today into tomorrow, especially to start off. Then we'll see a little cool down of about 5 to 10 degrees following, active weather for the next couple of days. But then again, starting on the 12th or so, starting next weekend and into next week, we see high heat again returning to the area. And so that is a concern for our crops, I'd say, that can exacerbate or make worse drought conditions. And also, not to overemphasize this too much, but human health too. When we're out there working the fields, it can get pretty hot out there. So another thing for worker safety as well when you have those extreme hot days. But yeah, I think we're in for that for the short term. Also, drier conditions expected to return, in about 1 to 2 weeks as well, along with that high heat. As we look, though, in the later July, more mixed signals. We don't really see consistent heat or cool dominating July, the latter 2 weeks of July, I should say. So kind of uncertain how long we're going to lock into this heat pattern, but it doesn't look like it will last forever, but it could hold on for a little while. And as we go even further through the rest of the growing season through September, is kind of a toss-up. I think we're kind of stuck, a pickle in the middle, kind of in a way, where areas kind of around us to the west especially favored to be warmer, but not so much right over South Dakota. Also, precipitation is also a lot uncertain as we finish out the growing season. So it's really a tough season to really make a strong call on either temperature or precipitation, which tells me I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth continue, kind of like how we saw in June.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we will have to keep an eye out there. So, Laura, with that, did I miss anything or anything to wrap up on or a message to leave those farmers with as we come to the end of our time here?
No, I think, again, just be, weather aware when you're out there, no matter what the weather conditions are. They can turn quickly, but I think heat and drought are going to continue to be a story here, at least for the next couple weeks. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that.
Absolutely. All right, Laura, as always, thank you for joining us here today. It was a pleasure to have you on and visit with you as always. So you have a great rest of your day and have a great rest of your week. So thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Danielle.
Perfect. All right. That's Laura Edwards, SDSU Extension State Climatologist, joining us here today on the Afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Well, we'll take a quick break here. We'll take a look at some ag weather. And then at the bottom of the hour, we'll take a look at your markets here. So stay tuned.
The voice of the Midwest, 570 WNAX.